Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome to Mercury Travel, where I share the beauty of travel with you. And in this video, I am going to talk to you about why I, as an American, moved to Spain as a digital nomad. I'm going to share my journey with you and why would somebody do that. So if that's something you're looking to know, what are the reasons behind why you would do it? Do you resonate with what it is that I'm saying? Are these your experiences? Then this is definitely the video for you. And as the series progresses on, I'm also going to talk to you about how you can become a digital nomad. How can you move to Spain? What are the documents that you need? Did I use an attorney? Do you need an attorney? How do you move here with pets? What about things happening with children? Is there really cost savings? I'm going to talk to you about the entire experience because I have absolutely been through it. So if we've never met before, I am Stormy and I am thrilled to be here with you. And I, first of all, out of the gate, have to say, this move to Spain is 0% in response to anything that was happening in 2024. This is not politically motivated. I didn't have any of that. This move to Spain for me was 0% motivated by I need to run away from something. So I like to share that and I like to open that up because in this particular type of moving abroad, doing something like this, I think if we're making these decisions just solely out of fear or we're running away from something, there's a big space, there's a big set of gaps, there's a lot that's going to be missed, and it can be an unsettling feeling and you're really not as prepared. And I can tell you that just from being a natural nomad myself, a natural traveler, right? When it's done out of fear or I'm making decisions very quickly and it's just in a panic, usually there's a lot of gaps in the story. I find myself making a lot of mistakes. So instead, to open up about why I moved to Spain and did it as a digital nomad is to say that I very much so love the content produced by Andrew Henderson and his five-word motto: go where you're treated best. Go where you are treated best. And this was so in alignment with my own personal beliefs about the world. I have believed my entire life that there is life outside of the United States, that the United States is not just the best and the only thing going. For me, I'm also a natural polyglot. I speak multiple languages because that's something that I love. So having access, having ideas about the world outside of the United States was always here for me. And as I got older, the other conception that came to me is that the world is in fact open for business. It is open for business. And in terms of even living in a particular country, right? If the business of that country is not treating you right, you can go where you are treated best. And that's exactly what I decided to do. So the move for me and my family was not motivated at all by let's run away from something. Instead, it was motivated with let's move towards something. Let's move towards where we are treated best. Now, it's interesting enough, as this journey was taking place, there were some other things starting to happen in my life that was getting me a bit more motivated to make this move to Spain. The first of which is that when I was 19 years old, I wanted to move to Europe. I wanted to be in Europe. My grandmother was a German citizen in Heidelberg. So I just kind of always had a sense that I would be in Europe anyways. I knew that the pace of life was easier. There was a lot more refinement. Just Europe felt like it was a right place to live. Life had other plans, and I ended up staying in the United States much longer than I ever planned to, but I have had a good life, right? I got to be in the United States with my family. Beautiful people. They have given me such a strong backbone, such a strong start. We have built a beautiful family together. However, from the time that I was 19, if you know, this thing that's in you when you go someplace or when you've been someplace and you're like, wait, I think I belong here. I think that this is where I should be. That was my experience in one of my travels to Europe that had me there at 19 going, yeah, I think that this is where I belong. I was easy. I was creative. I was in my feminine energy. I felt like I could live and move and have my being not just without having the hustle, but in a space that welcomed women to be beautiful, welcomed creativity, welcomed music, welcomed art, all of the things that I love and naturally am. So that was a bit of a beginning portion of the experience. However, when we were back in the States, more and more I was getting a little bit older and intuition had been calling to me for a couple years about, maybe we're getting closer to the time that it's going to be okay for us to engage the conversation and maybe have this transition to Europe. And then, of course, the prices of living and things like that continue to go up, and health insurance continued to go up and continue to go up. And in my career, in the work that I do, I own my own company. I own 3 of my own companies, right? They were making great money. They are still making great money. And yet, the way that those companies really needed to continue to make great money or continue to function in the vibration of the United States was I was going to have to stay in my hustle. Right? I was going to have to stay in my masculine energy and in my hustle and in my push. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And I was getting a little bit older. And I remember having this sense that just washed over me. And I said, if I do not get out of the United States, I think that I will die here. And I wasn't like attributing this to being shot or any of the things that we have going on, but I knew some really big change was about to start coming in for me. And little did I know, Miss Perimenopause was starting to knock on the door. And as my body started to really begin to have these shifts, the first thing that happened to me is I was like, kicked out of that masculine energy and kicked into my feminine energy in a way that was mind-blowing. And I understood then, I'm like, I don't want to live at this speed. I don't want to live at this pace anymore. I don't want to be afraid to take one of my children to the doctor because of how much it's going to be. I don't want the stress of living like this. I don't believe that every time I pay my taxes that the tax money is going where it needs to go and that I'm living someplace that is treating me the best for me, not the best in the world, because the United States is still a superpower. We have the strongest military. We have an incredibly strong economy, go there where you will, but it's not a bad situation in terms of some strengths that it brings to the table. But for me, I needed to go where I was treated best. And I knew that that would be into Europe. So I ended up engaging this conversation with my husband about like actually making a move with our family to Europe. And it's funny because my husband is very much so like a homebody. He's like, no, we could just live in the same place for the whole rest of our lives. And he is just not as adventurous as I am. And he'll even tell you that, so the idea to him, he could not get it when I was trying to explain Europe to him. He just couldn't get it. He's like, I don't understand. Why would I sell all of my things to go on an airplane with the few things I'll have left and drink coffee someplace else, So I ended up telling him, I can't really explain this to you. I broke down the numbers because he is a numbers man. So I broke down the numbers and just looking at the numbers, cost of living, including health insurance, including having the dog living here, including all of the sanity numbers, because I put a number behind that as well. That made sense to him, but it just didn't make sense to him. So we ended up coming on a scouting trip to Seville, and we said, okay, we're going to come. We're going to spend, several weeks in Spain. And we're going to spend the time in Spain as if we were working. So we didn't book any time off except for the travel time. We left our schedules normal, which meant that, the daytime in the United States was going to be the nighttime in Spain. So we had time to live our lives during the day and start to live and get the movement of being in Europe into our bodies and into his body in particular. And, we spent several weeks here. And we had to do the adjustment, but we spent several weeks here and we were on our way to the airport back to the United States. And for me, it was done. It was a done deal. I'm ready to go, sell the things, get the kid, put the dog, right? I'm ready to go. But my husband and I are a team. And on the way to the airport, he said, I don't think that this is it. I don't think that this is what's going to be right for us. And my heart was broken. My heart was absolutely broken, but we are a team, right? And I said, if this is not what the universe has for my family, this is not the best thing, then this is just not the best thing. And we got into the airport in Texas. We touched down, we landed, and he could feel all the energy come right back into his body that had not been there for weeks. He felt himself getting more aggressive, feeling more fearful about, okay, does somebody in here have a gun? All of these things rushed back into his body and into his being, and we hadn't even picked up our bags yet. And he said, let's do it. let's do it. And he said, I really didn't understand what you were saying to me about how I had to get it in my body and I had to experience what is it like for me to not be on 10 all the time, in another place. And that is the experience that sealed the deal for us. We came back and we really started to look at life. We started to look at life in terms of what are we keeping? What are we giving away? Where are we going to live? All of the questions began to come up. But in the end, what was happening for both of us is that we were motivated to move towards something, to move towards where we were treated best. And we found that not only in terms of the energy and the daily pace of life and living and the community atmosphere that's available in Spain, because it's a very community-minded place. You're outside together with other people, very close in each other's space. In the United States, we really don't do that, right? So we had that piece of information. And then, of course, we're looking at just the numbers. For us, for our health insurance plan for a family of 4, we were looking at, a premium of almost $1,000 a month, which didn't cover all of the specialists that also one of my daughters needs to see. It was not covering the co-pays. It wasn't covering any of those kinds of things. And next to the numbers that we were looking at in Spain for full comprehensive coverage to include dental, it absolutely didn't make any sense. We were looking at premiums of $1,000 for 4 people and a full monthly payment to cover for people in private insurance of 186 euros. So round that up to 200 United States dollar for the best care I have probably had in my life in a medical system. And that's not to say anything bad against my doctors. My doctors in the US have been absolutely brilliant. You are all brilliant. The system doesn't make sense, right? Some of the other things, though, the motivation behind looking at making this move extended into our family as well, because I am a pretty good business person. So if I'm going to make a move or I'm going to make some kind of investment, I want it to touch and benefit as many people's lives as possible. So first things first, looking at how does this help the immediate family? How does this help us reduce the stress, keep more money, have more time to travel, bring the experience of life, not just the day-to-day drudge that we were experiencing into our lives. But next, how does this work for education for our children? If they wanted to stay in Spain, if we end up becoming citizens or we want to stay longer or permanent residents, what does this mean for us? What does it mean for the children in terms of education? Well, finding out that the Spanish universities and colleges and other programs that have international business features to them were comparable and accepted in the United States, and they could get an entire degree for about 500 euro, that really changed the game in terms of perspective, because it also meant that we knew that our children were going to be out dealing with global business, being out in a place where they needed to speak multiple languages. Speaking multiple languages, we knew that this would be something that would help them as well, because they would be in a space where multiple languages were being spoken as well, right? Like when I go outside any given day here, there are a handful of language. People are like a Rolodex of languages. You don't speak this, let's go to this. You don't speak this, let's go to this, right? So the language feature was an absolutely huge piece too in thinking about the children's future. How do we best prepare them to go out in the world? Because in the United States, although as a polyglot, I've always had language in other languages and teaching languages in my home, in the schools, which took up a lot of time, this really wasn't a push. There's no push to really learn a ton about being outside of the United States and being prepared for the global business that's out there, right? That's not really as available. And that became glaringly, apparent as we were getting ready to make this move. But so we knew we would be preparing the girls and ourselves with other language as well to really firm up those skills in case they need them. Beyond that, we saw that as we stay in Spain and we continue to live and participate in the community, there do become other options for citizenship, permanent residence, and things like that. And as our parents were aging, we would have the opportunity to potentially bring them over here if we needed to, as well as dependents of us, which meant that the medication that my mother needs for her diabetes, that she pays about $600 a month for that one medication, she would be able to get that here at not even half the cost and have great treatment, have good checkups, right? We knew that in the United States. What I don't see half as much as I see here in Spain is that families have time to be with their elders, and their elders are outside. They are walking. They are sitting at the park together. They are grouped together in little elderly people communities having a coffee, right? We knew that there would be an opportunity for our parents to also have a good life here, have their medical needs met, relieve some of the stress. We could retire them fully whenever they are ready, right? So we could see immediately how, if we're deciding to go where we are treated best and take some of that weight, take some of that fear, take some of that drain off of us, that this could also be a decision that not only benefited us, it continued to trickle down and have that rippling out effect, down to include that, you know, I'm an Ancestry.com person. I like looking at the family tree, and every family has that person or people who click the tree in a different direction. And I was more than happy to do that. I'm like, I am happy to be a portion of the tree that clicks us in a different direction. So, you know, there's a lot that was happening when we considered the motivation to move to Spain. And if I could take anything in this whole video and leave you with it as why essentially did I move to Spain and do it as a digital nomad? I did it as a digital nomad because I own my own companies and I can work forever in the world that I need to, that I want to. So it was an easy move, right? And the investment was already mine. I'd keep working. I get to be out during the day, all day long, look at the art, do whatever I want, work out, spend time with myself, spend time with my family, and then see my clients for just a few hours at night, right? Being a digital nomad was a straight shot. But in the end, why did I move to Spain? I moved to Spain to immerse myself in kindness, to immerse myself in ease, to immerse myself in a culture that is much older than the United States has to offer right now, so that as I began this second portion of my life where my hormones are shifting, where I am moving back towards femininity, where I am moving towards ease, and I realize that I don't have anything to prove to the world. I do not have to be on that hustle. It is not my responsibility to be doing all of these things that hormones convince you that you can do, that where I was treated best was going to be someplace outside of the United States at this particular time. And in this case, it happened to be Spain, because Spain was wonderfully welcome. I already speak the language. And as soon as we got here, there was more than embrace to motivate us to stay here and to build a life in Spain. So if you are thinking, or you've ever dreamed about like living outside the United States, or you want to know specifically what's happening in Spain, what's the healthcare system? What's actually the process of becoming a digital nomad? You know, how do you do that? What are the cons of moving to Spain? This channel and this series is going to take care of you as I share my adventure and share the beauty of travel with you about moving to Spain as an American. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Check out the next video in this series. And if you've got questions, or you're thinking, oh my God, this is so overwhelming, I have got a little guide that can help you move abroad, can help you move to Spain, answers some questions, and just helps you kind of break this thing down little by little to make it much more digestible. But leave your questions in the comment section down below. I'm 1000% willing to help. Bye, everybody.